caught my fiancée on her coworker's lap without her ring, so I emptied our $60,000 wedding fund and vanished overnight. So, I'm 32 and my fiancée, we'll call her Sarah, is 30. We've been together for 5 years and engaged for the last 10 months. We've been living together in this apartment that we both signed a lease on. Wedding planning was rolling full steam ahead, and we'd even picked a date about 8 months from now. We had booked most of the big stuff, and deposits were already paid. This whole story really kicks off with some events and one big incident that made me rethink everything. I'm writing this to lay out what went down. We had this joint savings account that we were using as our wedding fund. Over about a year and a half, we saved up $75,000. Both our paychecks contributed, but since I make more, a bigger chunk was from me. I was the main person on this account, which matters later. The first hiccup, which I now see was a red flag, was about the engagement ring. Sarah picked out a ring she said she loved. After I proposed, she wore it all the time for a month, but then I noticed she stopped wearing it to her office job. She works with clients, so when I asked her, she said that flaunting an expensive ring wasn't right in her work environment. She worried it might change how clients or coworkers saw her or that it might distract from her presentations or work discussions. I didn't quite get it at first since lots of professionals wear rings, but I let it slide. A few weeks later, her story changed. She started saying her relationship status was private, and she didn't think she needed to share that info through a visible sign like a ring. She wanted her work to be the focus, not her engagement. This reasoning didn't sit well with me, as being engaged is usually seen as a positive milestone. I told her this, pointing out there were no security issues at her company. But she was firm, saying her choice and comfort were what mattered in her workplace. This routine continued. She'd put the ring on for our outings or any social events but never for work. Sometimes she even forgot it on weekends until I reminded her, which she just shrugged off. I also noticed she was more guarded with her phone, angling it away from me when notifications came in. Then there was this guy at work she often talked about. Let's call him Chad. She mentioned him increasingly in the context of work projects or funny office stories. At first, it didn't seem suspicious, but the frequency of mentions picked up. She also started staying late for work functions or team dinners more often. When I asked for details, she kept it vague, saying it was just a team thing or client networking. I offered to pick her up a couple of times, but she always turned me down, saying she'd catch a ride with a colleague or take a cab. Wedding planning was also starting to stress us out. Sarah was really particular about everything: the venue, the photographer, her dress, all top-dollar choices. I raised concerns about the rising costs and suggested we find more budget-friendly options. She argued it was a once-in-a-lifetime event and had to be perfect. Since we had $60,000 saved, she thought we could handle her picks. I mostly went along with it, wanting her to be happy and to dodge endless arguments about planning. Everything hit the fan 3 days ago. It was a Tuesday night, and Sarah said she was at a late meeting that would include dinner with a possible new client and her team, including Chad. She went to work that morning without her ring again. Around 9:30 p.m., I was scrolling through Instagram and saw a story from a mutual acquaintance, someone who knows both of us but is more her work buddy. This person was at the event Sarah mentioned. The story started with group shots at a restaurant and food pics, but then there was a 15-second video where the camera panned across a booth. There was Sarah, sitting right on Chad's lap, not just casually but with her arm over his shoulder and her head really close to his. They were laughing together, and he had his hand pretty high on her side. At one point, she playfully touched his face. The scene was not a formal client dinner, it looked like a bar, dimly lit with music playing. Other colleagues were around, some I recognized from her previous posts. And that's how I found out. Wow, what a roller coaster. So, here's the scoop: everyone's having a blast, and the Instagram story has a caption like the team's letting loose. Right after that, the same person drops another post, a photo this time. It's a selfie Chad snapped with Sarah right next to him, both of them pulling goofy faces. The caption on the pic says something like "Get a room, you too," followed by a cheerful "So happy for our work hubby and wifey," and tags both of them. Here's where it gets messy. My fiancée is being called a work wifey with Chad, and she's sitting on his lap without her engagement ring, all over social media. I watched the clip a bunch of times, and yep, that's definitely Sarah. Her whole spiel about professionalism and not flaunting her relationship suddenly clicks into place. My blood was boiling, but I didn't call her, text her, or wait around for a face-to-face. What did I do? Well, within minutes of seeing that Instagram story, I logged into our shared wedding fund account, I'm the primary on that, and shifted the whole $60,000 to my account, which she can't touch. I took screenshots of the story, the video, and every single caption in case she tried to delete them. Then, I started packing. I filled 3 big suitcases with my clothes, important papers, laptop, work stuff, and any valuable personal items, like some art and my watch collection. I didn't grab any of her stuff or our shared furniture, even though I'd paid for most of it. I decided to leave it for now. Packing was a drag, but I focused on getting it done in about 2 hours. Our apartment lease has both our names, so I put my copy on the kitchen counter and left a short note saying, "Sarah, I saw the Instagram story. I took the $60,000 from the wedding fund. I'm out. Don't contact me. Keys are here." I left my keys next to the note and called a 24-hour moving service to help me get the suitcases and a few boxes to storage and then drop me at a hotel. They came super fast, and as they loaded up my stuff, I checked the apartment one last time to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything important. I left with the movers around 1:30 a.m., and we took my stuff to a storage place I had quickly booked online. Paid for 3 months up front. From there, we headed to a hotel across town. I checked in with my own card. Sarah's usual for these late work gigs is between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., maybe later, so she was probably out or on her way back when I left. I wanted to make my point clear without any immediate drama. Once in the hotel, I silenced my phone, knowing she'd see my note in the empty space pretty soon, likely freaking out. I wasn't in the mood to hear it right away. This all went down 3 days ago, so we're not talking ancient history. I'm still staying at the hotel, having made my statement by backing out of the engagement and moving out. Sarah's calls and texts started flooding in around 2:30 a.m. when she must have seen my note, and her family's chiming in too. I haven't checked the messages, just glanced at who they're from. So, I've ended things with Sarah without talking it out face to face after spotting that Instagram debacle. I feel oddly calm and sure about jetting out and grabbing the funds to protect myself emotionally and financially. I'm sharing this partly to wrap my head around how quickly a 5-year relationship and wedding plans can go up in smoke because of blatant betrayal. Her antics with the ring, the excuses, the late-night events, and finally seeing what's up with Chad, it all paints a picture of constant disrespect and deceit, especially with how public and seemingly accepted it was at her work. Hey, so I've got a story to share about a pretty wild situation I found myself in. Turns out, my partner Sarah had this work hubby thing going on, and it was pretty bold, and honestly, quite hurtful. I'm not even questioning whether I was in the wrong here because I seriously don't think I am. My actions were just a response to what she did. I'm curious if anyone else has dealt with a partner blatantly ignoring their relationship, especially when marriage is on the horizon. I'd love to hear how things played out for others after a breakup, like, what kind of drama or problems came up with the ex or their friends. With wedding plans and a lot of money involved, I'm pretty sure this isn't the last I'll hear from Sarah. Here's an update, thanks to everyone who read my last post and commented. I've gone through a lot of messages, and it's strangely comforting to see how many people have been through similar betrayals. I'm not after sympathy, just trying to understand how others dealt with it. Some folks question the ethics of me taking the full $60,000 from our wedding fund. Just to clear things up, it was a joint account, but I was the primary holder, meaning I had full control over it. Most of the cash, like 70 to 75%, came from my salary. I know it's a bit of a gray area for some, but given that trust with Sarah was totally broken, I felt it was right to pull the plug on funding a wedding that wasn't happening. Then there was this Instagram story from one of Sarah's coworkers. It was a post with Sarah and Chad tagged, talking about their work marriage. It wasn't just a random joke either, others commented with similar things. The original post got deleted after Sarah realized I saw it, but I've got screenshots. I briefly met Chad at a work party ages ago. He seemed like just another colleague, and Sarah never mentioned being particularly close to him until recently. Some people thought I should have confronted her, but based on past little arguments, it would have likely turned into a blame game or gaslighting session. I just wasn't up for that. Instead, I let my actions speak for themselves. Reflecting on everything, my decision feels more right than ever. The person I thought I knew turned out to be a facade. I've been chatting with a lawyer about the legal side of things, like the lease, the money, and wedding cancellations. For now, I'm staying in a hotel and looking for a new apartment. I've cut off all contact with Sarah, phone's on silent for her number, and she's blocked on social media. She's tried reaching out through loads of calls and messages, along with her family. The messages started off confused, then panicked about the money, and finally angry. I haven't responded to any. My lawyer sent Sarah a letter about ending our lease and splitting any leftover stuff. I've also been getting in touch with wedding vendors to cancel everything. It's been rough, most deposits are non-refundable, so I'm taking a $15,000 hit. It's the price of moving on, I guess. My lawyer says Sarah's equally responsible for cancellation fees since the contracts were in both our names. Right now, I'm not chasing her for half of those lost deposits because I'm just trying to get out of this mess cleanly. I've told all the vendors that any future emails about cancellations should also be sent to Sarah, since she was part of setting everything up. Watching from afar, her reaction has been exactly what I figured it would be. It just reinforces my thoughts that she's acting pretty entitled and out of touch. After she got the lawyer's letter, which I sent both by registered mail and email, she seemed to double down on trying to get in touch, not to say sorry, but to throw around demands and threats. Her mom even called my mom, but I had already given my parents a heads up about all this, so my mom was ready. Her mom accused me of ditching Sarah, stealing wedding money, and being generally awful and unstable, demanding my mom talk sense into me and return Sarah's money. My mom calmly told her that I'm a grown-up, she trusts my decisions, and this whole thing was between Sarah and me. She suggested maybe Sarah should think about her own actions. Apparently, Sarah's mom didn't take that well, got nasty, and my mom ended the call. On top of that, Sarah sent an email to my work, saying the whole Instagram thing was a drunken mistake and a big misunderstanding. She said Chad's just a friend and that I'm the one overreacting and being a psycho. She demanded I give back the money right away so she could keep planning, saying her wedding as if it's gonna happen without me. She even threatened to sue for the cash, slander, and emotional distress. Her tone was far from sorry, more like demanding and annoyed. She also claimed I had no right to wreck everything over one silly picture and video. No mention of the ring issue or other sketchy behavior, though. I heard from a friend who seems to be on my side that Sarah's spinning a completely different story to everyone else. In her version, I became suddenly controlling and wouldn't let her hang with guy friends, then stormed off and took the wedding money just to get back at her for having a normal work life. She's leaving out the part about being too touchy-feely or joking about a work husband. She's trying to act like she's the victim of a crazy partner. This friend also said Chad's been super low-key and avoiding Sarah at work since this whole thing blew up there. Apparently, Sarah had a meltdown at work when she couldn't reach me, which got everyone talking. The apartment thing is turning into a nightmare too. She won't agree to end the lease, probably out of spite or because she can't afford it on her own. My lawyer's dealing with this, so for now, I'm staying out of direct contact. It's clear she's not reflecting on her actions, she's just deflecting and lashing out, which justifies my decision to steer clear of her. The whole watching her life fall apart bit isn't exactly about everything crashing down yet, but more about watching her plans and expectations unravel. She wanted a big wedding, mostly paid by me, and a carefree life without consequences. That fantasy is definitely coming apart. It's been 3 months since I first posted about finding out about Sarah's actions and all the fallout. A lot has happened, and the situation is pretty much going as expected, though it's still annoying. From what I can tell, Sarah's life hasn't gotten any better. Keeping my distance has been key. After her initial flood of calls, texts, and that angry email, followed by her mom's interference, she's been trying to reach out less often, but it's not stopped completely. I still get the odd voicemail, which I just delete, and I've had to block a new number she tried. The apartment lease and canceling wedding stuff have been the main battles. Most of the vendors have now canceled, with the lost deposits totaling just under $17,000, which I covered out of the $75,000. When Sarah got confirmation of the cancellations and some final bills, some had small extra cancellation fees not covered by deposits. She apparently sent angry emails to several vendors, accusing them of taking my side and demanding they refund her for emotional distress. 2 vendors reached out to me, complaining about her harassment and forwarded the emails. Her logic seemed to be that since I canceled, she was the victim and deserved compensation, but they just pointed her back to the contracts she signed too. The apartment lease was a tougher nut to crack. She wouldn't sign anything to end it early or negotiate a buyout. She stayed put, seemingly expecting me to pay my rent share forever while she lived there. When I left, there were 5 months left on the lease. My lawyer told her I'd cover my share for the required 60-day notice period per our agreement if one of us wanted out, but that after that, she'd be on her own for the rent or face penalties for breaking the lease. For 2 months, I paid my half directly to the landlord, and my lawyer sent her a notice to cover the full amount after that. So, here's the scoop. Last week, the landlord told my lawyer that Sarah hasn't paid the full rent for the 3rd month in a row. The first month, it was totally on her to pay, but she started telling the landlord that I was supposed to handle it and even accused me of stealing her money. Because of this, the landlord's kicked off eviction proceedings against her since she won't play ball or own up to her financial mess. This means her living situation is pretty up in the air now. Through a mutual friend, I learned that things aren't going great for Sarah at work either. She tried telling everyone I'm controlling and jealous, but that story fell apart once people heard about her Instagram drama, which some coworkers caught and saved before it got deleted. Plus, her weird work friendship with this guy Chad turned a lot of heads. Chad backed off real quick once everything blew up, telling colleagues he dodged a bullet and that Sarah was a bit too much. Now she's basically on her own and kind of getting laughed at work. Word on the street is her work performance isn't what it used to be, and folks think she's just bringing drama. There's even a rumor she's job hunting or might get shown the door. And then, out of the blue, Sarah got a lawyer and sent me this letter demanding I give back $60,000 plus damages for breaking a promise to marry and all sorts of emotional stress and damage to her reputation. The letter was filled with wild claims and straight-up lies about me being at fault. My lawyer looked it over, and we replied explaining why I ended the engagement, complete with Instagram evidence, and broke down what we each put into the wedding fund. We even told them we'd be happy to audit all expenses and figure out who paid what for our shared living costs. We also made it clear that I'd be going after her for her part of the lost money from wedding deposits and breaking the lease. After covering the $17,000 lost deposits, I've still got $43,000 left, and my lawyer's confident that her case doesn't stand a chance, especially considering how she's acted. The whole promise to marry thing is old school and rarely works when there's a solid reason to end things, which we think we've got. Her lawyer's probably just testing the waters to see if I'll cave and settle. We told them straight up that there's no way I'm doing that, except in maybe figuring out what she actually put into the wedding fund after accounting for any joint debts like vendor cancellation fees. It's been 2 weeks since we sent our response, and we haven't heard a peep. On a brighter note, I've moved into a new, smaller apartment about a month ago. I've nearly sorted through the mess of closing shared accounts and bills. I've been getting back into the swing of things at work and sticking to a routine. The initial anger I felt has turned into a kind of tired annoyance whenever something about her pops up. Watching her life unravel is like watching a slow-motion train wreck, mostly because of her choices and entitled attitude. She's damaged her professional image, her living situation's shaky due to the eviction, and her attempts to strong-arm money or repair things by bullying have flopped. She seems to be pushing people away, all because she chose to not wear her engagement ring for shady reasons, mess around with a coworker, and act entitled and aggressive instead of taking responsibility. Whether her legal threats turn into something real or just fizzle out depends on if her lawyer clues her in about how costly and unlikely her claims are. On my end, I've finally closed the book on this relationship. The person I thought Sarah was? Turns out she didn't exist, or she was just putting on a really good act. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more crazy real-life stories happening around you.